Okay, let's move on to week one. And the way we'll do this is we'll just kind of run through the notable games, talk about them each a little bit. And
Yeah.
then at the end, we'll both pick our 5 games to watch of the week. And then we will do locks of the week after that. So we didn't talk about which games. So if I miss one that you want to talk about, feel free to jump in. But not an especially loaded week. We've seen a lot bigger week ones, but there are some good
Right.
games that I will be watching for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Thursday night, Nebraska is at Minnesota. Minnesota a 7.5 point favorite. The first game, obviously, the Matt Rule era. Minnesota lost a lot. They got their quarterback, the Greek freak, Ethan Kalikman. I can't even pronounce it, but that guy. What are your thoughts? From is this just a? Do you have any definitive expectations, or are you just kind of looking for what will the Matt Rule team look like in game one?
More just looking for what it'll look like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have any expectations. I think it's a little unfair too, by the way, as well. Like, give them at least a number of games to get there and get used to it. We've seen a lot of really, really successful coaches struggle out of the gates year one. Now, year two is a different thing. Like, you need to be good in year two. This is first game. Like, we're and by the way, we're also in like the transfer portal era to where whole rosters are changing, and like there's so much mix up, I guess, in just team chemistry. Give them a little bit of time to find themselves. But yeah, I do think Nebraska will be a little surprising. I think they could be a little interesting. So I go ahead and say that, just, don't put any pressure on them, but they're probably going to be pretty good. So I guess that does kind of put pressure on them. So
Are you a
no,
believer in Jeff Sims, their new quarterback?
no. Like, is that mean? Like, I don't mean that in a degrading way. It's not, it's no, like I don't. I guess maybe because of how much I've watched him from being here in the state of Georgia, but like, yeah, do I need to say anything else? I don't really. Like, it was kind of underwhelming. There's a lot of people out there that do. By the way, there are some Jeff Sims apologists out there that think that this could really work. I'll believe it when I see it. I hope it works. Like, it'd be nice. I'd root for him for it to work. But yeah, I would have my doubts.
It's kind of interesting. Like anybody that has watched him the last year or two just feels like
Mhm.
he never really did anything. But then from what you hear, like other
Yeah,
ACC coaches that coached
yeah,
against him, they actually respect him. So
right.
maybe Nebraska can actually protect him a little better than Georgia Tech, and we'll see what happens. But Minnesota's
Fair.
defense is excellent. So yeah, good test for Nebraska in their first game under Matt Rule. The other Thursday night game is Florida at Utah. And this is a really interesting game because nobody knows
Yes,
if
sir.
Cam Rising is playing. Utah is a 7 point favorite here. Man, so much of it hinges on Rising, I feel like. The other
Yeah,
storyline, obviously,
agreed.
is Graham Mertz is the quarterback for Florida, and what will that look like? Florida might need this game if they want to go bowling this year or better. That's maybe a bit of a stretch, but they can't lose this game and have a great season.
Um, yeah, I would maybe push back a little bit. I
Okay.
think that like we saw Utah lose this game last year and go on to have a successful season.
True.
I do think it's a little different for Florida. Like, this is a non-conference game. I think if you're Florida, like, if you can beat Tennessee week 3, even if you do lose this game to Utah, I think you're still off and running. You'd be 2-1 at that point, and you would have a ton of momentum in the SEC East. But I am with you. I think it's going to be a tall task for them to beat Utah at their place. We saw a really good game a year ago, by the way, too. It was also week 1. This Florida Utah game last year was really, really fun to watch. Came down all the way to the end. I think it will be again. I think this one's intriguing. I think maybe it's the matchup. You don't see Florida and like in Utah, and you don't really see Utah
Right.
and Florida. Like, that whole thing was really fun. A good home and home. Um,
By the
yeah, it's
way,
gonna.
that's awesome. So many other Power Five programs that would have scheduled this, they would have scheduled for the one game is going to be at Jerry World and the other game is going to be in Charlotte or something like these
Right.
NFL stadiums. I love that they did a home and home, especially for two teams that are so far apart from each other and just completely different. So, sorry I interrupted you, but I just thought that was
No,
cool.
I feel the exact same way. I think the environment is great. I think the environment was really good in Florida last year. I think it'll be really good in Salt Lake City this year. I think this is what it's what really gets the blood pumping. A good non-conference game can be a lot of fun sometimes. So I do agree with you on the rise on the Cam Rising thing. It's been impossible to find information. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think Vegas really knows if he's playing or not. He's listed currently on their depth chart as QB1. But like Whittingham is not giving any updated information at all. Like, it's very undercover. So, and if he does go, probably not 100%. And like, yeah, I don't know. Like, there's a lot to factor into it. I'll just go ahead and say this: I don't have a good feel for this game. I'm not betting it because of that. There's just too many unknowns. This is not one of my locks of the week, even though I will absolutely be watching this game.
I would agree. Stay away from this game. Out of curiosity, like, what would the line be if Florida had Devin Leary instead of Graham Mertz?
Yeah. I mean, a field goal, probably like four points to a field goal, I would say. I mean, you could make an argument that it would even be less than that. Yeah. Devin Leary he's a sneaky one. The quarterback at Kentucky, like, say he goes to Alabama or Florida, Auburn could use him. He ends up at Kentucky. Imagine how much like the narrative changes if he's just, at a different SEC school.
I think I would pick Alabama to win the title if they had Devin Leary at quarterback this year.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to Friday night. We have Louisville versus Georgia Tech. I think it's maybe in the Mercedes-Benz Dome, so it's technically neutral site, but obviously in Georgia. So Louisville, an 8.5-point favorite. First game under their new head coach, Jeff Brom. And Georgia Tech, Brent Key is now officially their head coach after kind of being the interim. Yeah. Anything you're looking for from this game, or is it just kind of like watch the helmets and see what happens and maybe we get a clue?
Okay, here's where my mindset is. Like, this game's at 7:30 Eastern. I am going to a high school game at 7:30 Friday night instead of watching this game. Like, I don't really care. I hope that doesn't make me a casual. It's Georgia Tech. Like, I don't really like them. I don't root for them. Louisville has a weak schedule. We know that. And I don't know. Both of these teams right now, I'm just kind of like, get back with me later. Like, kind of just get back with me later. Like, I don't really care about you right now. There's too many other interesting things to do. So I will be watching football, but I would rather watch high school over this game, if that says anything about my rooting interest.
Yes, fair enough. Okay, let's move on to the Saturday slate. We'll start with Virginia against Tennessee, playing in Nashville.
Yes, sir.
Tennessee, roughly a 28.5-point favorite. I'm just going to say one line on these, and then if we go to the locks, I'll find the best line. But 28.5-point favorite or so for Tennessee. Virginia, we know, was pretty terrible last year. Tennessee was really good. They lost Hendon Hooker to the draft, but we'll see if Joe Milton can kind of pick up where Hooker left off. What do you expect from this game? Like, do you expect Virginia to be able to fight at all?
Okay. I think that Virginia is one of the worst Power 5 teams.
Yeah.
I think Tennessee I think we forget how close Tennessee was to being a playoff team last year. And they had pieces leave. I understand that. But I think, like, I don't understand how this line is so low. Like, how is it 28 points? I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. It almost is alarmingly low. Like, someone knows something that I don't, but it's week 1. I still believe that I know things here. Virginia's not very good. So, yeah, like, that's kind of where I went with it. You need to watch Joe Milton. Like, you need to watch this game. Joe Milton matters in the layout of college football this year. How he performs will matter to a lot of teams, not just your team and not just Tennessee. It could have a lot of impact just on the landscape if he's good or not. So, yeah, watch this game mainly to see that, because I do not think it will be very competitive.
I would agree. All right. Next, we have Colorado at TCU. Obviously, the first game for Deion Sanders, and TCU coming off a national title appearance. TCU favored by 20.5 points. Do you view, I don't know, are you watching for TCU or Colorado or both, or the explosion or the fireworks, or what are you watching this for?
Yeah, like both. Like, this one's fun. This one's fun. Deion, you can say what you want to about him, but you did watch. You watched the game. I think a lot of people will be watching this game. So TCU, line's at 20.5. I think that's what you said too. That's what I'm showing. Almost 3 touchdowns. So we're not giving Colorado just a ton of respect. It's on the road. It's in Fort Worth. like we think TCU will come out and really punch them in the face. I would tend to agree. I want to watch. Like you don't know. I'm not betting on it. I'm going nowhere near this one because Colorado can just be so volatile. But yeah, like it's going to be interesting. It's going to be entertaining. You can't say you're not going to watch this game.
Yeah, for sure. That's one where I don't even know what to expect at all.
Right.
I mean, other than I expect TCU to win, but I'm watching just to kind of see what Colorado looks like under Dion, and can their line play be not horrific, and can TCU continue to look pretty good despite all the things that they lost? Yeah, it's just an interesting game to start the season off.
Like what do the quarterbacks look like on both sides?
Right.
What are the quarterback plays? What's it going to be for TCU this year and for Colorado?
Yeah. Speaking of quarterback play, Ohio State is at Indiana. Ohio State a 28.5-point favorite. And apparently Ryan Day has said that they are planning on playing both quarterbacks against Indiana.
Okay.
Indiana, they have apparently decided a starter, but they are not telling anybody until the game. So
Okay. Okay.
I think Ohio State will win this game comfortably.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll have like a definitive starter coming out of this? You have to imagine that's what Ryan Day wants. It's like he wants one of these guys to really just take the reins.
Ryan Day doesn't seem like a quarterback juggling type of coach. You know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't really seem like his MO. He's not a Steve Spurrier, if that makes sense. Yeah, I would agree. He's hoping that one guy takes it and runs with it. It kind of means, like for me, here's what I take from it. Everyone thought that Kyle McCord was going to be the guy. He apparently has not taken off and run with it. Like that's kind of what this would tell me, is that we're not sure yet. And we're hoping that we get some game action and he does that, because that's the guy that the coaches, I believe, wanted to win that job. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like I mean, yes and no. Like I think Ryan Day would have enjoyed announcing a starter a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And yeah, like kind of like a lot of other teams did. So it's noteworthy, at least. And it is, hey, by the way, Ohio State, Indiana on CBS. Like, I'm not used to it, man. I'm not going to be used to that. Not at 3:30. It's a 3:30 slot. Like, I'm not going to be. I'm not just gonna ease into that. As an SEC fan, these habits die hard, man.
Yeah, that's a little weird. There's also some Big Ten games on NBC, and it's things are changing. You got to make sure you check those listings, or you might end up on the wrong game.
Right.
All right. Boise State is at Washington. Washington, a 15.5-point favorite.
Yeah.
Kind of a lot of late steam about like Boise and being pretty solid. Like their quarterback is supposed to be pretty good. They finished last year strong. I don't know. Like to me, I feel like Washington is probably pretty clearly the better team. But I am definitely interested in watching this game. I want to see Washington's offense. That's just fun to watch, regardless of who they're playing.
Right.
Seeing Michael Penix and those great receivers. Any chance Boise can make this a game for longer than a half?
There's a lot of people out there that think so. You mentioned the buzz around Boise State late. I saw that as well. A couple of different places. This is not just from one source. There's a lot of people out there like, hey, Boise, just watch out for them. That game stays close. Possible even upset scenario. I don't think so. I mean, I think Washington is clearly a better football team. But I mean, it's week one. Like like upsets can happen. Upsets will happen. Like we will. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say we will have some upsets that we did not see coming. And this is a prime candidate, as prime as anyone. So yeah, it's a possibility.
So obviously that's the Chris Peterson Bowl.
It is. Yeah.
How many schools in college football right now would be better off with Chris Peterson as their head coach?
I mean, probably like 85%, like if not more. You could go 90, 95%. He's excellent. Why did he quit coaching? Anyone know? Like, I know he stepped down and I think because he was it just all the extra responsibilities now that he had?
I think he always just kind of struck me as a guy who he's not your typical football coach that football is his life and that's all he cares about. Like I think Peterson, he made his money and he wants to enjoy his family and probably some of the NIL and all of those different things. And yeah, he never seemed to really super love recruiting and, kissing up to 17-year-olds is not for
Yeah.
everybody.
It's not.
But yeah, he was very good at identifying underrated talent and developing it very well. Anyway, enough about Chris Peterson, although I love the guy. I wish he'd come back to football. We'll move on. West Virginia is at Penn State. Penn State, a 20.5-point favorite. There's look at it this way. This will be narrative rich no matter what comes out of this game. There will be a lot to talk about. Penn State has playoff hopes. They have Big Ten title hopes. West Virginia, Pat McAfee was dropping a little bit like sleeper for the Big 12. Obviously he went to West Virginia.
Was he? Okay, I did not see that.
Yeah. So, and obviously there's also the whole thing of, West Virginia, Neil Brown is probably the favorite to be fired first among all head coaches this year.
Yeah.
I think West Virginia probably needs to keep this within that range. Like if they lose this game by 5 touchdowns, which is possible, we're probably looking at Neil Brown being out before long, I would guess.
For me, I think it's more about like I understand the point, and I agree with you that like Neil Brown's on thin ice. I think we've talked about it this offseason. I don't even think he should, like, if you're going to try to fire him anyway, like what's the point in bringing him for the season? Like it didn't make sense to me then. Still doesn't really. But we're watching this game for Penn State. Like what does the new offense look, or not the new offense, but the new quarterback? Like what does it look like with Aller, with the running backs? We think they've got a really good offensive line. We know the defense is solid. Like what does it all look like? Because there's a lot of Penn State buzz out there right now. Penn State, one of the teams of the offseason, you could say. They had a really nice offseason, generating a lot of buzz around their team for this next year. I've bought into it. Like there's a lot of us that have. I'm not by myself in that. We need to see it though. Like we really need this to work. We need them to come out and be a step better, 2 steps better than West Virginia early on and dominate a game. So yeah, like that's what we're looking for. I think they will. Like I like Penn State. I'm not gonna really hide from that fact. So do you see this game staying close at all? Like any reason it stays close?
I don't think so. I mean, define close, I guess. We've seen West Virginia fight pretty hard against teams that are better than them in the past. Yeah. Even though they lose more than they win lately, like they still have shown the ability to fight and play up to the level of competition from time to time. They almost beat Pitt last year in their opener.
Right. Yeah.
I think college football is better when West Virginia is good, and I just kind of miss them. Like,
right.
Never, being like a huge national power or anything, but at least being a fun team to watch. And that's just not what they've been lately. Yeah, but yeah, this is about Penn State. What can Drew Lohr do? What can the offense do? Does their defense stop the run? Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll have a lot to say about Penn State coming out of this game, even though it's just week 1.
Yeah.
All right, a neutral site game, North Carolina versus South Carolina in Charlotte. North Carolina is favored by 2.5. Why are they the one favored by 2.5?
I don't know. That's a great question. The only reason, okay, this one bothered me. This line has bothered me for a while now, and here's what I've come up with. It's the only real reason that I've been able to find is that South Carolina, the returning production that they have, the returning starters that they have, is the least of the 14 SEC teams. They do not have much coming back. Now, They do have, like, a big part of that. One of the few guys that is coming back is Spencer Rattler, and also Juice Wells, the receiver, which is like, those are kind of the guys that carried them, in their wins over Tennessee and Clemson to end the year. Like, so yeah, like they do have a few returning starters, and they're key spots. But yeah, I think the thought was that they've lost a lot in defense. The defensive line has lost a lot. Like they've lost a lot kind of everywhere. And maybe that's the reason why it's so low. I don't understand it though, because North Carolina doesn't feel like they have as good a personnel as South Carolina does. It doesn't really make sense to me. Maybe it's because North Carolina has Drake May too. Like, I guess that could kind of be the other reason. Do you have any thought on that?
It's got to be Drake May. I mean, he's probably the second best quarterback in college football.
Yeah.
But they lost Phil Longo, their offensive coordinator.
Yes.
Their defense has given us no reason to think that they will be halfway decent. I mean, it's terrible.
Right.
I don't know that obviously South Carolina lost a ton, whatever. I don't know that they're significantly more talented than North Carolina.
Right.
But I do know that I've seen Shane Beamer pretty much maximize his talent, and I
Yeah.
have not seen Mac Brown do that the last couple of years.
Agreed.
I would tend to think that South Carolina is going to win this football game. You're not going to change my mind
More on that
one, are
later.
you? More on that later.
We have locks. Yeah, you're not going to
Yeah.
get an argument from me there.
All right, I got one more game to talk about on Saturday. Coastal Carolina is at UCLA. We just found out, I believe today, that Garber's won the quarterback job for UCLA. I wouldn't be
Saw that.
surprised if
Yeah.
Dante Moore plays a little bit, but yeah, Coastal Carolina, they lost Jamie Chadwell, but they bring back the quarterback whose name escapes me for
Grayson McCall.
Grayson McCall, who's been there for a long time and has done really good things. I think this could be a very fun matchup. We'll learn something about both of these teams, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. The quarterback decision was a little interesting because I saw that, I'm sure as you did, and it was just kind of like, wow, okay. Everyone talks about Dante Moore. He was getting I think he was preseason for all freshmen in the Pac-12. We had a lot of high hopes for him. And by the way, it doesn't mean that, maybe we're just breaking him in easy. Like maybe we're not just getting, just jumping in the deep end there. So I had no problem with that. It's something to watch, just to keep an eye on. It will be still a secondary game for me this week. That is not going on the main screen. Something just to keep an eye on, though.
Sure. Okay, we'll move on to Sunday. One of the big games of the week. LSU is playing Florida State in Orlando, kind of a rematch of a week one, just a banger a year ago.
Yeah.
LSU favored by 2.5. What are you expecting from this game?
I think more of the same as what we got last year. What a great game that was. Have you went back and rewatched it? I know I just did, just a week or so ago, just kind of getting ready for week one. That was a fantastic game. So yeah, hopefully it's just something like that.
Yeah, I have not rewatched it, but I might have to do that this week sometime before the season before week one starts, just to kind of relive especially the ending, like the end, just the last few minutes there were insane. Okay, one more game to talk about Monday night. Clemson is at Duke. Clemson, a 12.5-point favorite. This has been talked about a little bit as like maybe a bit of a tricky spot. Duke was obviously pretty good last year.
Right.
And this is a road game for Clemson. What do you expect? Like, do you feel like we see, some of the iffiness that we've seen the last couple of years from Clemson, and they struggle maybe to put away Duke, or do you expect them to come out and say, we're the better team, we're going to take this game?
I think they come out and say they're the better team. I think this is part of Clemson reclaiming the ACC, which I think they will do. So this is step one. I don't think this one will be as close as a lot of people think. Doesn't mean that Duke's a bad team. Duke is a team on the rise. Duke had a great year last year. All those things are true. Clemson is the class of the ACC, though. That is still true. And I think will be evident this year. So yeah, I don't think that one's going to be particularly close.
Any games I missed for this weekend slate that you'd like to talk about?
No, I mean, not really. I was going to the one that I was going to bring up was, I don't know if you talked about Rice or Texas. That's nationally televised game. It actually doesn't, I can't even find a line for it right now. I'm sure it has one. I'm just not looking at one. But yeah, it's going to be, that's going to be a bit of a bloodbath, probably. Texas, a lot of eyes on Texas. Quinn Ewers,
Texas by 35.
Yeah, okay, that I guess feels about right. Like Texas needs this to work. This needs to work. The offense does need to be good. The receivers need to be good. That was one other one that I would pay maybe a little bit of attention to, but no, other than that, you hit the big ones.